You got to love a brilliant scientist who started a media company so that people can get science. That's the coolest thing in the world. And she's here on Swell, and I'm so excited because Alex Dainis is going to kind of answer questions that we have. I have so many, but let me just let you hear something that she posted on Instagram just right now.
Want to see your own DNA? The answer is obviously yes. First, swish with some salt water to collect cheek cells from inside your mouth. Next, stir in just a little bit of dish detergent. This is going to break apart the membranes of the cells so that DNA can come out into the salty solution. And that salty solution is going to neutralize DNA's charge, making it harder for it to stay dissolved in water. So where's it going to go? Into the cold isopropyl alcohol that you can pour on top. See all this gunk in between the two layers? Let's move you closer. That's your DNA.
Okay, so that is really cool. She just showed us how she created little strands of DNA, and then you could pop that under a microscope and see you under a microscope. Alex, you are warm and fuzzy and amazing in addition to being brilliant. I've been reading about you, and I'm really happy that you're here. And I have to ask you first, because we're a community of people who listen and people who ask questions, are there topics that you just love to talk about? I mean, I know you love to talk about genetics because that's your thing, but I'm kind of sensing that you love space also. So I love to ask people questions, and I love people to ask questions. So I want this to be a real circular connection between you, me, and everybody listening. So what is your favorite thing that you want to talk about? And let's talk about that. That's kind of an open-ended question. I'm not going to assume it's NASA or genetics or something else. So let us know what's really burning in your pocket right now that we can talk about. And I'm excited. I also want to learn about your media company. So just let us know all this. And I look forward to this conversation so much. Welcome to Swell.
First of all, thank you so much for such an incredibly kind introduction. I'm so excited to be talking to you and to everyone else on this platform. I think it's going to be super fun. You were correct that in addition to loving genetics and chemistry and biology, I do also love space, and especially space biology. I thought for a long time that as a geneticist, I sort of had to stay in my own lane of science, and that I couldn't love space as much as I did because it wasn't really my specialty. It wasn't my thing. But about 5 or 6 years ago, I ended up interviewing astronaut Kate Rubins, who was the first person to sequence DNA in space. And it really opened up my eyes to the just incredible amount of biology that happens not only up on the International Space Station, but also, just biology and science done by people who are looking at how we can search for life on other planets and how we can think about, keeping astronauts healthy as they go farther and farther out into space, and the many different challenges that the human body faces when it's in this new environment of microgravity or no gravity. So space biology is a fun one. I love that I've been welcomed by the space biology community to be able to talk about that. The other space that I truly love talking about and love developing ideas and content and conversations around is food science. Food is so intrinsically tied to our communities and our cultures, and there's so much science in both, the chemistry of cooking and what happens when you introduce food to heat, and how the proteins change and how the composition of the food changes, and the tastes and the smells and all of those things enhance and improve and just become so different chemically. But there's also a lot of science in thinking about how we're going to keep food around and how we're going to keep it nutritious in the face of things like climate change and the future of our world. How are we going to continue to feed people in a way that's both nutritious and also delicious and tasty? And so, yeah, of course, I'm happy to answer questions about genetics. That's my big thing. But space biology, food science, or also food science in space, there's a lot of cool stuff there. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to answer questions. I'm ready to talk about it all.
Hey, Alex, welcome to Swell. It's so funny that you mentioned genetics in space, because one of the other ways I was going to title this was do our genetics change when we're in space? But I wanted to keep this more broad. So I do want to talk a little bit about procreation in space. It's come up in my brain because that's my brain. So what do you think about this? So let's say somebody's living in zero gravity, but they're in this bubble where there's gravity, and they're having a kid, and they're in this world that definitely has different poles to it. You know, astrology is basically based on the fact that when you were conceived and when you were born, there were certain orders of things in the magnetic sense of the world, where pulls and pushes from different heavenly bodies are contributing to your personality, to your body type, to everything. I mean, we can go into that, but that's not science, right? That's just theoretical stuff. But from your perspective, when genetics are being created through the act of procreation, I can't imagine that it wouldn't be affected by people being in a different environment like space. Have you ever thought about genetics and space in terms of conception? And if you have, what have you thought about?